So age 7 is when I witnessed my sister and her friends playing with a Ouija board, and even though I didn't take part, something still attached to me. Almost immediately, activity started happening. Our cats were hissing and swatting at something that wasn't there. My dog would have panic attacks around doorways and would snarl and bark and basically go in full defense mode. The night after the Ouija board was played with, the pictures hanging in the living room and resting on the entertainment system, and candles my mom has throughout the living room and kitchen were all moved. Nobody had seen it happen, but everyone, my mom, my older sister, and myself in the trailer, have heard noises, but nobody got up to check. My sister and I knew what was going on, but our mom didn't. She thought we were up all night partying and yelled at us for rearranging everything. Fast forward a few months. It's one of the few rain, thunder, and lightning storms in Anchorage, and I had a friend staying over. We'll call him Ian, it's not his real name. We were playing Army Man 3D on PS1 in my room with the blinds up, watching the lightning and listening to the rumbling of thunder, when there was a loud smack at my window. We both jumped and looked at the window, thinking lightning must have struck. We were young, not that bright. But I mentioned to Ian this was probably a bird flying into the window. Moments later, the rain, thunder, and lightning stop. Condensation sets in on the window, and on the window is an outline of a person's face, chest, and arms sprawled across my window. Ian starts crying and begging for his mom to come and get him. He ends up going, but he tells his mom and my mom that he had a nightmare. Now, about the trailer we lived in was raised about 6 or 7 foot off the ground, and we have had friends in the neighbourhood who would occasionally pull pranks, and we also had lots of creeps in the neighbourhood who were caught peeking in windows. But the imprint on my window did not look human. The nose looked like it was torn off along with part of the lips, and the arm span seemingly too long to be a person's. I never spoke of this incident until 2 years ago. On 3 separate occasions, my sister had the cord in her headphones to her Walkman cut. All 3 times, I wasn't home and my sister was either at a friend's or in the shower. My mom and sister honestly thought it was me cutting them to get back at my sister for something she did. But after the 3rd time of the wires getting cut and proving to both my sister and mom that I wasn't around to do it, and that they weren't home either, is when they really started to believe something was happening. After the headphone incident, my grandmother came to visit to help my sister and I. She was digging through the closet looking for a mousetrap when she discovered the Ouija board. My grandmother came unglued when she found it and went on a rant to my sister and I about what can be opened and what can come through by using it, and that it's not a toy. My grandmother then proceeded to destroy the board and then blessed the house. After my grandmother told my mom everything that happened and that she shouldn't have let my sister buy it, my mom was unaware that my sister had purchased it from an estate sale just down the road from us. I spent that night at my dad's house to kind of get away from the drama at my mom's. The following day, I came home and everyone seems on edge and nobody would talk to me really. After settling down in my room, my sister comes in and tells me, "Grandma saw a ghost boy last night in Mom's room." I didn't believe her at first, till she went into more detail. She told me, "Grandma woke up at 3 a.m. to the hall light being turned up to where it was super bright, then being dimmed all the way down, and when she sat up to get her slippers on, she heard the door creak open a little more, and thought she saw you. She called out to you, but you wouldn't answer, and when she got close enough to see it wasn't you, she started screaming. She said the boy was dressed in an early 1900s sailor suit, had pale or grey skin, dark blue and black around the eyes and lips, and he grinned at her before vanishing." My mom, grandmother, and sister slept in the same bed that night. After this event, things were quiet for a little while. Occasionally, cupboards would open and close, we would hear footsteps in the hallway, voices from time to time yelling one of our names from another room. Fast forward another 3 months, my mom finds out she's having another baby. We're all happy, But unfortunately, we are struggling, so we have to rehome our dogs and cats. My mum gives us a week to spoil them with love before we take them to their new home. They were all taken to a new home and they had happier lives with a bigger yard and acres of land to explore with a new family. I was playing with little Bob, our Jack Russell Terrier, by throwing a blanket over me and he'd pull it off and would cover himself with it and I'd pull it off him. It's a game we've been playing since we had him. I throw the blanket over myself when I hear things get super quiet before little Bob starts to whimper and growl at something. Before I can take the blankets off, I hear a deep, raspy old man's breathing behind me and then a really loud exhale. I froze and couldn't move, and my dog continued to try and defend me. After little Bob jumped in my lap, things felt more relaxed and the feeling of a presence in the room was gone. Fast forward 6 months. My newborn baby sister is here and we're having a nice quiet evening at home. I'm in the day room. It's added on addition to the trailer, basically a second living room. My mom and her friend, who we'll call Yolanda, were in the main living room watching TV, and my mom's friend was singing to my newborn sister in Spanish. When I hear my mom and Yolanda scream, followed by my mom screaming my name, I come running down the hallway thinking something had happened to my baby sister, when my mom stops me and demands that I go to my room and grab my Halloween skull faceplate mask with horns running across the top. I go in my room and bring it to her. She snatches it and throws it in the trash. I'm confused and ask my mom what's going on. She sits me down while Yolanda is praying in Spanish while calming down my baby sister and tells me this. I saw a figure crawling down the hallway on all fours. The limbs looked like they were dislocated and looked like they had on that mask I had thrown away. Please tell me that was you. Please tell me that was you trying to scare us. I told my mom, there's no way that was me, and I honestly started to cry because I was so scared. My mom and Yolanda both saw it, and they also saw me come out of the day room, and that night, we all slept in my mom's room. After my grandmother experienced the ghost boy in the room, things were quiet for a while. The last time we had experienced any activity was at Tonsina Lodge, far up north near Copper Center, Alaska. I don't remember when my grandmother used to work there, back in the 70s, I believe. She told me of a man named Charlie who had hung himself in the hotel, and his spirit still haunts the lodge. My grandmother and her sisters who had worked there used to have their hair pulled out and their butts grabbed by a shadow figure, which they assumed was Charlie. I got to explore Tonsina Lodge with my family in the late 2000s, when it was still run down. It's been through renovations and is up and running now. I'm not sure if Charlie's room is still there, but when I visited, they left his room as he had it. The rope he used to hang himself was still in his room. People had left him flowers, cards, cigarettes, hustler mags, and money around the noose that laid on his bed to show respect. We heard some voices and my grandma thinks she caught a face in the window from outside the lodge, but it's disputable. I did, however, capture a giant red orb above my younger sister's head, and in the photo, she's staring directly at it. In the orb, you can almost make out a face. I believe my grandmother has the photo. I will contact her this weekend and try to see if she can find it. Fast forward to 2008. I'm now 14 and noticed that some activity has been going on around my dad's apartment. I lived with my dad for the following years to come, and my favourite Misfits beanie would disappear along with both of my dad's and stepmom's keys. One minute, my hat or their keys would be hanging up, and then they're not on the hooks. We'd split up and look throughout the apartment, which consists of 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, kitchen and living room, so it shouldn't be hard to find the missing keys or hat. After almost an hour to an hour and a half, we'd give up and just sit on the couch to rethink and retrace our steps when we'd hear a jingle and the keys would be back on the hook. Or we would hear what sounded like a towel being dropped gently and my hat would be in the middle of the floor. A few months go by and no activity until one night I have a dream where I'm in the shoes of a corpseman on Iwo Jima. and I hear a marine screaming out for me in tall grass. When I run over to him, I try packing his wounds when I realized he's dead. Then I hear someone yell out behind me, "Tonihika Banzai." When I turned around, a Japanese soldier disguised as a bush sticks a bayonet through my chest. I woke up from the dream and my chest was really sore. I lifted up my shirt to see a giant red scratch going from above my left nipple down to my belly button. I no longer have the pic my dad took of it. My grandmother and a few others who have supernatural gifts and believes it was one of my past lives. They could be right, but it could have just been a nightmare. I do kind of believe in reincarnation since I've started to find many photos of people throughout history who look exactly like me. Fast forward to summer of 2009. I had just landed my first job working as housekeeping at the Copper River Princess Lodge. It's built on Alaskan native land, which once was used for ceremonies a long time ago. I've heard stories from family members who have previously worked there, and they would tell me about the blonde girl in a white dress who wanders through the hotel and occasionally the parking lot. Most guests who see her think she's lost and try to approach her, but by the time they do, she's gone. I don't know any other information on her besides that. One day, I get done cleaning a room when a guest comes out and complains that the people on the third floor are very rude and wouldn't stop moving furniture. Confused, I ask him, "What do you mean the third floor? This lodge only has 2 stories." His eyes widened and he walked back to his room to grab his stuff and leave. For those of you who worked in the hotel industry, probably have heard of experienced norovirus. The toilet and a bucket will be your closest friend for a few days. I was home alone one of the 4 days I was out, and my grandmother's dog was sleeping next to me when he began to growl at the door and bark. I thought, oh, maybe someone's home. I stumbled out of bed and opened the door to see who it was. Nobody was in the house but me. I called out, but no reply. I then crawled back into bed with the dog when he began barking and growling again at the door. I thought he might need to go to the bathroom, so I opened the door again and he began to go back further into the room. That's when a very cold chill ran down my back and the room started feeling like the window was open during the snowy season. I closed the door and put the blanket over me, thinking maybe it was just the virus. Moments later, I hear footsteps going up and down the hallway, like someone was pacing back and forth impatiently. I open up the door and it stops. I look up and down the hallway and call out and no reply. When the room gets cold again, I'm looking around when I notice I can see my breath, which wasn't normal for July. I go to close the door again, but before I do, I hear someone exhale and see someone else's breath from in front of mine. I immediately shut the door, lock it, and stuff my suitcase amongst anything else I could fit in front of it. While I'm barricading the door, my grandmother's dog is going crazy on the bed, barking, lunging at the door, and frantically looking for whatever it is that's spooking both of us. After a short while of everything being quiet, I crawl back into bed with the dog and pass out. I wake up a short while later and I jump back in the bed after I had noticed everything in front of the door is moved aside and the door is unlocked. I call out to see if someone is home and yet again, no reply. I called my grandmother to see if she had stopped by and she hasn't been home all day. She's been on a Glen Ellen shopping and checking in on my grandpa at the electric company. I decided I'm not staying in the house, so I grab the dog and a pillow and blanket and sleep on the hammock until my grandparents are home. I run it by my grandmother, who was more upset about the fact that I slept outside, it was daytime, and that a bear could have gotten me. My grandparents believe me, but they've never experienced anything in that house, and they lived there since the 1970s. It's now 2010. My mom had moved out to the trailer park into a nice 2-story house. For the first 6 months, it's quiet until my mom has her 4th kid. My youngest sister is brought home after a few days at the hospital when activity starts. My mom has a water bottle that keeps disappearing on her and popping up in a different part of the house. She has my grandmother sleep in the bed with her and my younger sister, who we'll call Julia, sleeps on a fold-out bed next to them, since there's lots of strange noises from the disembodied voices and footsteps around the hallway of my mom's room. I stay over a week to help whatever and I'm sleeping in Julia's room across the hall from my mom's. It's 3:45 a.m. when I'm startled by the sound of my grandmother yelling at someone to get out. I thought she was talking to my mom's boyfriend, now stepdad, but when I come into the room, everyone is huddled up on the bed crying. The ghost boy from the trailer in the sailor suits was back, and my grandmother woke up to him standing over Julia. Then he turned around and pointed at my newborn sister. My grandmother told him, "No, you are not a child. You're a sick, disgusting demon, and you will not harm my grandbabies, my daughter or me. You will leave now before I show you something very scary." My grandmother told my mom and I this in private, not to scare Julia, and when she said the demon, that it got an angry face that changed to what looked like an older man's face with no nose and missing the upper and lower lip on the right side of the face, and he darted at her when she screamed, "Get out, you're not welcome here." My mom would live in that house for another 4 years, with little activity from voices to footsteps. After the ghost incident at my mom's house, activity ceased to exist for quite some time. Fast forward to August of 2012. I'm about to start my senior year of high school, and things have been pretty good. My dad had moved into a 2-story house, and after a week of living there, my dad and stepmom find out the previous owner had died in the house, and her cat died a few days later of a broken heart. After finding this out, we start hearing a cat meow, and have felt something rub up against our legs at night. My dad was taking a nap and felt something jump on the bed, and thinking it was my stepmom, and went to roll over and give her a kiss when he noticed nothing was in the bed. Then he looked down and saw an imprint of something curled up, laying on the bed next to him. A day later, my dad has a shadow figure dart past him on the stairwell leading down to his bedroom. He tells my stepmom and I it later that day, but my stepmom brushed it off, thinking it's just him being paranoid from his marijuana use. That night, they go out to get food, and I'm home alone on the computer in my room. Now, the door to my room makes a loud click when it's fully closed, and it takes some muscle to open. I heard footsteps in the hallway, thinking it was my dad and stepmom, and go to check the door, when I hear a loud click and see my doorknob start to turn. Then it flies open, like someone kicked it open. I check the hallway and nobody is there. I call out and no reply. I get creeped out, so I close and lock the door and go back to shitposting on Facebook. A few moments later, I heard footsteps and my door handle starts jiggling. I call out for whoever it is to leave me alone, and surprisingly, it stops. Once my dad and stepmom get home, I come running out and tell them what happened, and my dad brushes it off, while my stepmom ignores me. The next couple of days, things are quiet until my dad gets a call from my stepmom, who's shrieking and crying and isn't making any sense of what's wrong. My dad heads to the grocery store to pick her up, where she's having a breakdown. Once they get back and my dad gets my stepmom calmed down, he comes up and tells me this. Anna was standing in an aisle and noticed a black figure at the end of the aisle. She was out in one of her peripheral when all of a sudden it was in her face in a blink of an eye and whispered in her ear that there's nothing here for you. You're not welcome here. I will get you. I had chills for the rest of the night and couldn't sleep. Fast forward a few months and nothing happens, but I end up with a QT 3.14 strong 4.5, and I tell her all my ghost experience while we're in bed. She starts laughing and saying ghosts aren't real, and I'm full of shit. At that moment, my door clicked and the door flew open like someone kicked it, and it got really cold, and footsteps could be heard walking away from my room. My girlfriend at the time starts freaking out, and I start doing my best Johnny from Night of the Living Dead impersonation. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Mwahaha. That's when the footsteps started coming back towards my room, and I realized, oh fuck, I shouldn't have done that. I get up and shut the door and lock it. After that, things settled down occasionally. My allergies would act up as if there was a cat around. I'm highly allergic to cats, but that's never stopped me from loving them. I'd have the feeling of something curling up next to me in a bed, or a cat meowing outside my bedroom door. After high school graduation, I go back to Copper Riv Princess Lodge for my third and final season. This is where I experienced the most activity since childhood. The first month is quiet at the hotel, nothing out of the ordinary, until one morning at 3 a.m. I wake up to the sound of someone in my room, which isn't out of the ordinary. I gave 2 room keys to a friend and a girl I was seeing, but when I rubbed the sleep out of my eyes and they adjusted to the dark, I noticed the figure was levitating and I could see through it. It was touching my jackets in my closet and it turned towards me and started moving towards my bed. I threw the blankets over my head and took a small peek out from under the covers. When I saw it, it was just standing there waiting for me to look at it. I covered myself back up and told the figure, "Yo, you're fucking scaring me, please leave." After I said that, the room felt like a weight had been lifted from it. I got a text immediately after from my friend, who we'll call Sanchez. She texts me to meet her in the TV room ASAP. So I get up and get to the TV room, where she explains to me that she had a black figure in her room, flicking her beer can pyramid, and she thought it was me until she realised she could see through it. And he darted at her until she covered her head with a blanket and told her to kindly fuck off. We stayed awake for the rest of the morning, but the entire time, something was poking us in the back and ribs, and we could hear a muffled laugh. The next night, I get a call from the girl I'm seeing, who we'll call Double D. She worked as a night auditor for the hotel, and she called me crying and freaking out, so I rush over to the lodge to find her hiding behind the front desk, crying. I ask what's wrong, and this is what she tells me. I went to the bar to grab a soda, and I saw the black figure standing near the portraits of the trains and the mines, and I acknowledged it, telling it I'm aware that it's here, and I'm not going to bother you. I'm here for a soda, when it moved closer to me. I didn't see it move. All I did was blink, and it was closer, so I hurried and left, and as I was locking the doors to the bar, it ran into the glass door, and I could see its hand and face on the glass. It was snarling at me and laughing, but it didn't look human. Its face was distorted and missing teeth, and the face looked full of holes. I stayed up with her until she clocked out, and she came and slept in my room. After Double D's recovered mentally from the spirit charging at her in the bar, she realised that we weren't teasing her or trying to scare her. She slept in my room a few times when I was at work and would text me saying, "Something was shaking your bed while I was sleeping," or "I heard footsteps in your room." A few other employees experienced similar occurrences, and one housekeeper even woke up to a figure sitting on her bed, touching her leg. A week goes by after all of this, and my close friend, who we'll call Lugnuts, came to visit me with his fiancée, and his fiancée's friend, before he shipped out to basic training. I didn't tell them about the paranormal activity, and I booked them room 138. This room had more complaints and concerns made to front desk about hearing footsteps, voices, and the lights TV turning on and off. I know I'm a dick for setting Lugnuts and his fiancée and her friend up in that room, but I know Lugnuts would be fine and could handle whatever. He was attacked at the age of 15 by a random older gentleman when we were walking his dogs, and he beat up the guy without asking for help, so I knew he would more likely handle the TV turning on and off. When they arrived, we were walking to their room when his fiancée stops and asks, "Who's that little blonde girl peeking out from behind the soda machines?" We all stop to go look, and nothing is there behind the vending machine. Once they situated, we go back to the employee housing and play Cards Against Humanity, until it's time for them to clock out and go to bed. Before Lugnuts goes to bed, I pull him aside and tell him what his fiancée saw was a ghost that walks around the grounds. She's harmless, but she's very curious. He looks at me and says, Dang Flabber OP, why do you always have ghosts and shit around you? We laugh and I walk them back to their room. Come tomorrow morning, I meet them for breakfast and his fiancée tells me this. We heard voices in the bathroom. Something grabbed Dreadlock's fiancée's friend by the foot when she was sleeping, and she crawled into bed with us, and on top of that, something kept turning on the TV throughout the night. I come clean and tell them about the blonde girl in the white dress and how she's been seen at the lodge since it opened in the early mid-2000s, and that this ground used to be for Alaskan native tribes until they made a partnership with Princess Touring. After they leave, my co-workers Sanchez and Gare Bear head to my cousin's for some indulgence of free alcohol and Alaskan-grown marijuana. We share our experiences at the hotel with my cousin, and she mentions this cabin called the Bayless House. It's a real house owned by a family out in the Glen Allen, and my family has ties to that house since the 70s. The next part of the story, I've heard from 4 different family members who lived and babysat at the Bayless house, so please be patient. The first story I've heard from my mom, aunt, and my grandmother who was there for the first story. So my grandmother was babysitting for the family who lived there in the 70s, and everyone knew of this house because it has a bad past involving rape, murder, domestic violence, and people dabbling in voodoo and black magic, whatever you want to call it. And she had just put the baby to sleep and sat on the couch to study. About 5 minutes goes by where she hears a loud scraping and scratching sound coming from upstairs. She panics and runs to open the door when she hears loud banging and then the baby screaming. She can't bust the door down because something is holding it shut. So my grandmother gets a hold of some of the college football players, and it took 5 guys who are 6 foot tall, weighing about 200 pounds each, to break the door down. Once they get in, they see that the 6 foot tall dresser had been dragged in front of the door, and the baby's crib was flipped over and thrown across the room, and the baby was in the closet, wrapped up, unharmed. The floor was covered with deep scratch marks from the dresser and baby crib. My grandmother never went back to the Bayless house, and a short while later, the baby had died of a lung disease while it was on the way to the hospital. This second story I've heard multiple times from my mom, grandmother, and my aunt and cousin who were there when this happened. So the Bayless house looks like the cabin from Evil Dead or the cabin in the woods. Only difference is the cabin is 2 stories and has a concrete shelter right outside the front of the house, and a garage the same size as the cabin itself, and the trees are all wrapped around it like the forest is trying to swallow it. Just want to paint you a picture of how evil this place looks. So my cousin and aunt went there with friends when they were fresh out of college and wanted to play with a Ouija board to see if they could get some sort of reply. Well, one of their friends, who we'll call Christ because he was super religious, kept begging them to leave and that they shouldn't be there. The rest of the group ignore her and start asking questions and not really getting a reply, but Christ starts to freak out and is screaming at them to leave. Christ then starts to get a bloody nose and she starts to convulse, and then runs into a corner of the bedroom on the 1st floor. My cousin and aunt and the group go after her and hear her sobbing and speaking in tongues. My cousin goes to reach out and get her when Christ turns around and latches onto my cousin's forearm with her teeth. It took all 6 girls to get Christ off my cousin. Once they got out of the cabin and my cousin got her wounds cleaned, they noticed that the teeth marks were all canine teeth. There were no marks of human teeth to be found in her. Now, Gare Bear and myself wanted to go, and Sanchez said, "Fuck that, I'm not getting possessed." So my cousin have Gare Bear and I directions to go. We drop Sanchez off at the employee housing and drive to the Bayless house. We pull up and automatically nope the fuck out. We want a bigger group with us just in case. However, we found some abandoned trailers near the Copper Railroad Depot Saloon, CRD for short, and we decide, hey, let's go exploring. But first, let's grab Hockey Stick, co-worker, and Pretty Boy, another co-worker who had really pretty eyes for a guy. So we gather up the group, and the first trailer we go into is all torn apart. Broken windows, cut up beds, knocked out walls, and as we're leaving, Pretty Boy falls into a hole. This hole turned out to be a cellar that someone had built under the trailer. We turn on our flashlights and go in. It's all brick, and there's like a maze under the trailer with empty chambers, and we come into a big room and manage to find a light switch. The light works, but unfortunately it showed us the true use of this cellar. In the room is an old rusty bed frame with a dirty mattress in it, and on each end of the bed there were rusty handcuffs and scratched along the wall along with old dirty underwear on the floor. We all stop and stare at one another. Gerber begins to cry a little, and I feel like the last bit of humanity and sanity in me dies. We all get out of there losing our shit. After we calm down, we go to the second trailer. Better condition, but the furniture is turned over. There's spoiled and rotten food in the fridge and freezer, and Hockey Stick decides, hey, I'm going to throw an M80 into this pot of rotting meat in the freezer. Once it goes off, Hockey Stick is laughing until he opens the freezer and realizes that the rotting meat in the pot was actually a decomposing cat someone had thrown in there and left to die. At this point, we realize there's nothing but sick fucks out here and bad energy. When we get to the third trailer, we agree no more shenanigans. Just get in, explore, and leave, and don't take shit we go in through the window. And once we're all inside, we realize this trailer hasn't been touched since the 1990s. It was like a time capsule in the shape of a trailer. Now clothes and stuff were thrown about, but we split up to go explore. The trailer was a double wide, and we had lots to explore. Gerber and I took the master bedroom and the bathroom to the right, while Hockey Stick and Pretty Boy took the back of the trailer. I wish I could tell you what we learned our lesson when it came to touching shit, but we didn't. I found boxes of .308 ammo, which I took because I own firearms. Gerber found oxycodone and other pills in the medicine cabinet that had expired. Pretty Boy took videography in college and found a camcorder which he snuck into his backpack. Hockey Stick took vintage hockey cards since he loved hockey. Before we left, we found a photo album and were looking through it, and it looked like an old man and his wife lived there quite some time. Once we left and got back to the employee housing, we passed out for the night. Or so we thought. The entire night I had nightmares of domestic violence, yelling, torture and rape. When the four of us met up on a break, I spoke up about my nightmares, and the others had experienced the same nightmares, and even recalled seeing the old man appear a few times. Gerber and I collected all the items we took, and we drove back to the trailer around midnight, when the bar a few buildings away was in full swing and would cover any noise we made. Garrett and I sneak back through the window and start putting stuff back. When we meet up again in the living room, we promise no more taking stuff, and that we will honour that promise when we hear something fall in the back of the trailer. We both jumped into each other and made a break for the window, when we both got stuck trying to get out at the same time. We could hear something coming down the hallway at full force, stomping and pounding, when Gerber shoved me back into the trailer and jumps out. I stand up thinking, what the fuck, dude? When Gerber reached through and yanks me out with one hand and carries me to the car. As we're in the car, we see the blinds shuttering and a light turning on and off, and the window we left open had started to close on its own. We peel out and head home. We promise each other after the bayless house, no more exploring. Gerber and I get a small group of us to visit the bayless house. It's Gerber, Pretty Boy, Fake ID McGee, Red, and myself. We head down to the bayless house around 1:30 a.m. Ger and I go over rules with everyone, including no stealing shit, no vandalism, don't antagonize anything that's residing there. We first head into the cellar. Looks more like a concrete bunker from Normandy. There's a giant hole in the ceiling looking up into the kitchen. Now, the cellar isn't really special, and there's been lots of rumours of an old Alaskan native man freezing to death in the winter down there. But from all the people I've asked, they said it wasn't true. I started to do that shave and a haircut knock to see if I'd get a response, and of course, nothing. We finally head into the house and make a salt circle in the middle of the living room. There's a fireplace to our right with two plaid and paisley couches facing the opposite wall. There's a giant hole in the room looking into the main bedroom on the first floor. There's stories and reports of people being raped and abused in that room from the previous owners, and across from the bedroom is the kitchen with the gaping hole in the floor. And in between the kitchen and the room is a really steep staircase. The entire time we're walking around and searching Pretty Boy is talking shit the entire time about this shit ain't real. And if this shit was real, then the spirits better stop being a bitch and prove him wrong. The rest of us ignore him or tell him to knock it off. We finally head upstairs, and as the group is making its way through the narrow doorway, when I shine my light into a corner just before the doorway and see a latch on the wall, but it's very low to the ground. So I pull the latch back and a small crawl space is on the other side. I go through it, and it's just big enough for me to stand up in. I'm 5'6", and the passage was roughly about 6 feet tall. I'm walking down this passage when I come to a corner and see a door, so I open it and go through, and it leads out into the closet of the child's room. And as I open the closet door, I scare the hell out of everyone. After letting our pants dry from pissing in them and I'm able to pull my sides out of orbit and regain myself, we find the scrape marks from the crib and dresser, and while everyone is looking at the scrapes and scratches and exploring the secret passage, I start to hear a distant sound of a baby crying. Now this could be wildlife since we are in the wild, but it sounds almost human-like. After a couple minutes of everyone going back and forth through the passage, we notice Pretty Boy isn't with us. We start searching the house and calling out for him, and no response. After searching the downstairs, we check the cellar, and he's not there. Gare decides to check the garage out, and about 2 minutes go by without any sign of anyone coming out. I get out of the car and head over to the garage and find Gare shining his light on Pretty Boy, and Pretty Boy is standing in a corner holding something saying, "They won't let me leave. They won't let me leave. They won't stop screaming. They won't let me leave." Gare gets closer to try and see if he can help him to the car, but Pretty Boy jumps back and starts shouting, "I can't leave. Why won't you listen? They're showing me what I did to her. I can't leave." After calming Pretty Boy down, we get him to let go of what he's holding. And it's a vintage 1970s Scooby-Doo lunchbox. When Pretty Boy lets go, we usher him back to the car when he shoves us and bolts into the house. Gare and I run in after him, and as we run inside, Pretty Boy throws us into the salt circle and demands we stay there. Gare and I sit there dazed and confused and possibly shitting our pants to the brim, when Pretty Boy walks into the bedroom with a hole in the wall and starts speaking to something. He starts having a conversation that went like this, along with his voice changing to a woman's and really deep, almost not human, and back to his voice. "Okay, I came in here like you said. Now please stop showing me this. Why are you doing this? Please, it's not my fault. Oh God, please get away from me. Why would you do that to her? She was just a child. Fucking please stop. I'm sorry." Gare and I finally went out of the salt circle and pulled Pretty Boy into the salt circle and held him and started calming him down. Fake ID McGee and Red came in and helped us get Pretty Boy to the car. While we were driving back, Gare and Red start checking PB's eyes and see if he took any drugs that would cause him to hallucinate, but apparently he didn't take anything that night or the night before, and that's when Gare Bear asks PB what he meant by, "I didn't mean to do that to her." He told us that when he was in college, he was fooling around with a girl when they were drunk, but she passed out, and he continued to have his way with her, and he ended up hurting her really bad. When we get back to the employee housing, we agree to not talk about what happened. Unfortunately, Gare Bear's sister and her boyfriend, DJ Fuckhead, caught wind of what happened and decided to ask PB to take him to the house, when PB snapped and grabbed DJ Fuckhead by the scruff of his shirt and lifted him off the ground and told him to fuck off. The following day, I ask PB if he's alright, and he politely but firmly tells me to go fuck myself. Later that night, roughly 1 AM, a red truck comes speeding into employee housing when GBS, PB, DJ Fuckhead, Fake ID McGee, and another employee who we'll call Girl 1 jumped out of the truck screaming and crying, so GB, Red, Sanchez and myself go over to see what's wrong. GBS and DJ Fuckhead start to tell us what happened. They were talking about the bayless house when PB was in earshot when something in him snapped and he grabbed DJ Fuckhead by his shirt again and demanded that Fuckhead drives him back. Fuckhead explained that his eyes were almost completely black and his face seemed to morph a little into someone else's, like an older man's face. Fuckhead agreed to take him as long as GBS and Girl 1 could go, and PB told him more the merrier before smiling sinisterly and walking off. Fake ID McGee tagged along because he was worried and figured if PB snapped, he could help Fuckhead take him down. So they went to the bayless house and PB hopped out of the moving car and ran inside yelling, "I'm back!" Fake ID and Fuckhead told Girl 1 and GBS to stay in the truck while they go get PB. When Fake ID and Fuckhead ran in, PB yelled from the bedroom to stay the fuck in the salt circle and don't fucking leave. While they were in the salt circle, they felt the room getting ice cold when they heard what sounded like class on the hardwood floor circling the salt circle, and they saw breath start to appear where they heard the claws and started to hear a growl, when they heard PB's voice start to change from a woman's to a man's to a very deep demonic voice. All of a sudden, they heard the girls in the truck start to scream and then the truck peeling out. Fake ID and Fuckhead ran out of the house and down the road to the gas station, where they found the girls screaming and crying. Once GBS regained herself, she explained that she heard something knocking the shave and a haircut on the truck, then a laugh, and when she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw an emaciated face start to grin at her. Then the lips peeled back to where all you see was jagged, decaying teeth and a dark red or purple gums. Then the face started to get black holes where black smoke poured out. And then it began to laugh them and knock louder and harder when they sped down to the gas station. And when they jumped out, a gust of wind blew out from inside the truck. Then a demonic laugh could be heard. PB came walking out towards the truck with a smug look on his face and didn't say a word while they drove back. After we heard their story, we noticed PB was missing, and so was Girl 1. Luckily, someone spotted them by the smoke shack, so GB and I ran over, confronting BB and got Girl 1 away from him. PB had something in his hand and started naming off a bunch of people, which included one of my aunts, uncles and grandmother, and a few of their friends. People I never mentioned to him. I flashed PB my 38 and told him to hand over whatever it is he had. PB threw a booklet at me and he almost instantly collapsed and passed out once it left his hand. While GB and Girl 1 were checking PB, I opened the booklet and saw every person he named off, including my family members. I checked each picture back and front to see if they had names written on them, and some surprised nothing was written on them. We get PB to his room and we show our small group what he had and that most of, if not all these people, had some ties to the bayless house. Hockey Stick thought we were just fucking with them and that we were all on drugs. So I grabbed the booklet and tell Hockey Stick GB and I will take him to the bayless house and let him take it back, and so Hockey Stick agrees. We park at the gas station and tell Hockey Stick to put it back in the child's room on the second floor, and he agrees. 30 seconds later, Hockey Stick comes running out of the woods yelling for us to start the fucking car. He slides across the hood of the Honda Civic and Dukes of Hazzard style jumps in through his window and explains that he was walking to the stairs when a black figure slid from out of the bedroom towards him. Then another one appeared out of the kitchen and they chased him out of the door laughing. He also told us he looked for the salt circle, but there was no sign of it.